The fluorescent lights of County General Hospital buzzed overhead like angry wasps as Janelle Washington scrubbed the same stretch of linoleum for the third time that morning. Her knees ached, her back screamed in protest, and the antiseptic smell had long since burned itself into her nostrils until she couldn't remember what fresh air smelled like anymore. At 28 years old, she should have been building a career, maybe starting a family, living the life her mother had sacrificed everything for. Instead, she was here, on her hands and knees, cleaning up after people who looked through her like she was invisible. But Janelle had learned long ago that invisible meant safe, and safe meant surviving another day in a world that had never been designed for women who looked like her to win. She wrung out her mop with hands that had become calloused and rough, hands that used to play piano before the eviction, before her mother's cancer, before the student loans she'd never be able to repay crushed every dream she'd ever dared to whisper into the universe. The water in the bucket swirled gray and murky, much like her future felt most days. Janelle, Mrs. Rodriguez, the head of housekeeping, appeared around the corner, her face creased with an expression Janelle couldn't quite read. Concern, pity, it made her stomach clench. The director wants to see you in his office. Right now. The walk to the administrative wing felt like a funeral march. Getting called to the director's office meant one thing: you were being let go. Janelle's mind raced through her meager finances. She had exactly $243 in her checking account. Rent was due in 11 days. Her mother's medication cost $160 every 2 weeks, even with the discount pharmacy. The numbers didn't add up. They never did. Director Harrison's office smelled like leather and expensive coffee, a stark contrast to the bleach-soaked world Janelle inhabited. But it was the man sitting beside Harrison's desk who made her pause. Distinguished, probably in his 60s, wearing a suit that cost more than she made in 3 months. "Miss Washington, please sit down," Harrison said, his voice unusually gentle. "This is Mr. Charles Westbrook." The name meant nothing to her, but the way Harrison said it suggested it should. Charles Westbrook studied her with sharp gray eyes that seemed to catalog everything about her in seconds. "Miss Washington," Westbrook began, his voice rough like gravel, "I'm going to make you an unusual proposition. My son, Michael, has been in a coma for 8 months following a car accident. The doctors say he's stable, but he's not improving. According to his trust fund stipulations, if he's not married by his 30th birthday next month, his entire estate, including the medical trust that's keeping him alive, reverts to his stepmother." He paused, and something painful flickered across his face. A woman who's made it clear she's counting the days until she can pull the plug. Janelle's head spun. "I don't understand what this has to do with me. I need someone to marry my son. On paper, someone who won't try to take advantage of the situation, someone who needs help as much as he does." Westbrook pulled out a folder. "I've been watching you for 3 weeks. You visited your mother in the cancer ward every day during your lunch break. You give half your sandwich to the homeless man outside the east entrance. Last Tuesday, you found a wallet with $600 and turned it into security." The fact that she'd been observed made her skin crawl, but Janelle forced herself to focus. "You want me to marry a man in a coma. In exchange, your mother receives the best cancer treatment available. Private doctors, experimental trials, everything. Your student loans, paid in full. A salary of $5,000 a month for as long as Michael remains in his current condition." Westbrook leaned forward. "If he wakes up, you can annul the marriage immediately with a settlement of $100,000. If he doesn't, you stay married and keep receiving support. Either way, you and your mother are taken care of." It sounded like a fairy tale, which meant it was probably a trap. "Why me? Why not hire someone?" "Because I've seen people hired for this kind of thing. They're actors, mercenaries. The moment someone questions the legitimacy of the marriage, it falls apart." His voice cracked slightly. "I've watched vultures circle my son for 8 months. I need someone real, someone who understands what it means to fight for family." Janelle thought of her mother, skeletal and gray in her hospital bed, refusing treatment because they couldn't afford it. She thought of the notice on their apartment door, the final warning. She thought of all the nights she'd prayed for a miracle, never imagining it might look like this. "I need to think about it," she whispered. "You have 24 hours, Westbrook said, standing. "After that, I find someone else. The decision kept her awake all night. By morning, with her mother weakly insisting she was fine, while clearly fading away, Janelle knew she had no choice. She called the number on Westbrook's card. 3 days later, she stood in Michael Westbrook's private hospital room wearing a simple white dress someone had bought for her hand trembling as a judge pronounced them husband and wife. Michael lay motionless in the bed, beautiful even in stillness, his dark hair falling across a face that looked carved from marble. Machines beeped steadily, marking time in a life suspended between existing and living. You may kiss the groom, the judge said awkwardly. Janelle's heart hammered. This wasn't part of the agreement. But everyone was watching. The judge, the nurses serving as witnesses, Charles Westbrook with his desperate, pleading eyes. She leaned down, her lips hovering over Michael's for a moment before pressing gently against them. His lips were warm, surprisingly soft. For one impossible second, she felt something, a flutter, like a butterfly's wing against her mouth. Then Michael's hand twitched. The heart monitor's beeping changed rhythm. His eyelids fluttered. A nurse gasped and rushed forward, but Janelle stood frozen as Michael's eyes slowly opened, unfocused and confused, but unmistakably open. Michael. Charles Westbrook's voice broke as he rushed to his son's side. The next hours blurred into chaos. Doctors, tests, neurologists discussing things Janelle couldn't follow. She backed into a corner, watching this family reunion that she'd somehow catalyzed but didn't belong to. This was good, she told herself. He was awake. She could get her annulment, her money, disappear back into invisibility where she belonged. But then Michael's eyes found hers across the room, and he spoke his first words in 8 months. Who was she? That's Janelle, his father said carefully. Your wife. Over the following weeks, as Michael relearned how to walk, to feed himself, to exist in a world that had moved on without him, Janelle visited daily. At first, it was obligation. She was his wife, after all, at least on paper. But slowly, something shifted. Michael was kind, not the performative kindness of people who wanted something, but genuinely, quietly kind. He asked about her day. He remembered details, that her mother loved gardenias, that Janelle missed playing piano, that she took her coffee with too much sugar because it was the only sweetness she could afford. I don't understand why you did this, he said one afternoon, his voice still weak but growing stronger. Married a stranger in a coma. Janelle hesitated, then told him the truth about her mother, the debt, the desperation. To her surprise, he didn't look at her with pity or judgment. You saved my life, he said simply. The doctors told me about my stepmother's plans. If I hadn't been married. He reached for her hand, and she let him take it. You gave me a reason to wake up. Some part of me heard you, felt you, knew someone was fighting for me. That's not scientifically possible, Janelle said, but her voice shook. Maybe not, but I remember your voice reading to me. I remember you telling me about your mother, about the piano you used to play. I remember feeling like someone saw me, not just the trust fund or the tragedy, but me. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. I remember your kiss. The weeks turned into months. Janelle's mother began an experimental treatment that actually worked. Janelle enrolled in online classes to finish her degree. And somewhere between physical therapy sessions and late-night conversations, between Michael meeting her mother and Janelle learning that he'd been an architect before the accident, between shared meals and comfortable silences, the arrangement stopped feeling like a business transaction. It was Michael's father who finally said what they were both afraid to acknowledge. You know, Charles said during one of his visits, you two can actually be married. Not just on paper. Janelle and Michael exchanged glances. We barely know each other, Janelle protested weakly. You married him in a coma, Charles laughed. I think you've already committed to knowing him under the most challenging circumstances possible. That night, alone in Michael's room after his father left, Michael turned to Janelle. He's right, you know. I fell in love with the woman who married a stranger to save her mother. Who read to me every day even though I couldn't respond. Who saw me as a person, not a payout. He took her hand. I don't want an annulment. I want a real marriage. But only if you want it too. Janelle looked at this man who had become her best friend, her confidant, her unexpected joy. She thought about how he'd held her while she cried when her mother got her good test results. How he'd surprised her with a keyboard so she could play piano again. How he looked at her like she was precious, valuable, seen. "I don't want an annulment either," she whispered. Their second wedding happened a year later, with Janelle's mother, cancer-free and radiant, walking her down the aisle. This time, when the officiant said, "You may kiss your bride," Michael pulled her close and kissed her with the passion of a man who knew exactly how precious life and love truly were. As their lips met, Janelle thought about the desperate woman who'd walked into an impossible situation with nothing but hope and necessity. She thought about how sometimes miracles don't look like you expect them to. How the greatest love stories sometimes start in the darkest places. "What are you thinking?" Michael whispered against her lips. "That sometimes the craziest decisions are the ones that save us," she said. "That you can't plan for magic. And that I'd marry you in a coma all over again if it meant ending up right here." Around them, their family and friends cheered. But in that moment, it was just the two of them. Two people who'd found each other in the most improbable way and chosen to build something real from an arrangement that should have been temporary. Love, Janelle realized, didn't always arrive on schedule or in the package you expected. Sometimes it arrived on the edge of desperation, wearing the disguise of a business arrangement, and transformed everything with something as simple and profound as a kiss. And that, she thought as Michael spun her around the dance floor, was the most beautiful surprise of all.